What's going on, everyone? So, the upcoming Scream 7, you're going to see Sidney Prescott, the mother, the wife, and you're also going to get to see her family, right? Tatum is her daughter. She is supposed to be front and center in a lot of ways. This is a very Sidney-centric, Sidney-focused film, but her daughter and potentially Mark, right? Mark Evans, very likely are all going to kind of be these focal points for this upcoming Scream movie. Now, the thing is how are they going to portray and go about this film as far as Sydney and her focus with Tatum and so on and so forth, right? And now that we know that Scream 8 is supposed to be in the works and greenlit and they're supposed to start filming that, right? That my guess is that this is more likely than not going to lead into a trilogy. The moment they brought Sidney Prescott back, Nev Campbell agreed to sign on. There were immediately just rumors, because everything's a rumor until it's confirmed by the studio, but there was immediately talk of no, they're going to do a trilogy with Sidney Prescott again, right? Like that they finally convinced Nev to come back. They're working on a new film with her and the daughter, right? And that's the plan, right? So cool, great, sign me up. I'm all for it, right? Like I always say, the more Scream, the merrier. I am more than happy to keep. You can do Scream forever if you want to. As long as you give me a good story, good execution, good ghost face, right? Good character development, right? Give me Scream 30, right? I'm all for it. But you have to do this in a proper manner. But again, how are they going to kind of structure this into more movies? Because I think eventually Tatum is going to be the one that's front and center. I think Tatum is the one that's going to be, Isabel May is going to be the one that's kind of taking the torch from Nev, Sidney Prescott, and kind of transition into the final girl of the franchise, right? Basically what they were doing with Sam. So I really do think, again, just my thoughts, but I really do think that they're going to follow the Halloween approach, where you had 18 Halloween kills and Halloween ends. I think what is going to happen is you're going to have Sidney Prescott be the focal point, front and center. You're going to have her daughter and her husband, as supporting characters. Tatum, I think, will be a little bit more, but they're essentially be supporting characters. Sidney with the main helm. And then I think each movie you're going to start to see a little bit of more of this, and then eventually this, right? So again, using the Halloween trilogy of Halloween 18, Halloween Kills, and Halloween Ends, you saw the progression of Allison in each film. Laurie Strode was the main focus. You had Allison and Karen and the family and whatnot. Boom. Michael shows up, does his thing, comes after him, right? Then you start to see the transition into, Laurie's basically, in a hospital the whole film again. And then you see Karen kind of more front and center. You see Allison more front and center, right? In the end, Karen ends up dying. Allison ends up fully transitioning into the face. And then Laurie essentially becomes the background character. Laurie kind of becomes the supporting character. That is kind of the path that I think that they will follow in this Scream, where again, you'll have Sidney Prescott. She'll be the main focus, front and center. The motive, everything will probably orbit around her. And then I think in Scream 8, you'll really start to see that Allison or Tatum, right? Front and center, side by side with Sidney Prescott, right? Tatum and Sidney, they're the duo. Wouldn't be surprised if Mark ends up dying. Mark Evans, he ends up dying, right? And then I think Scream 9, you'll see Sidney kind of fade into the background. I think she'll still be there, but I think more of think of Gail or Dewey, right? Where, yes, they're still, the big three, right? They're the main focus, right? But Sidney is Sidney, right? And then you have Gail and then Dewey and then their stories and stuff. It's kind of what I think will happen, is I think Tatum will eventually be the Sidney, be the main focus, be the main character. The story orbits around her. Everything's kind of, she's at the center of it all. And then you'll have, Gail and Sidney essentially be the support character. characters. Like Sydney will be the Gale Weathers as far as like, again, support characters, and then Gale will be like the Dewey or vice versa, right? Like that's kind of how I think this goes. And I'm fine with that, right? Like, look, I'm somebody that wanted to move away from Sidney Prescott, right? It's not against Sidney Prescott. I love Sidney Prescott. I grew up with Sidney. I love Nev. But I want the Scream franchise to continue. And it's like, how long can you keep doing the same thing? Like, how many people want Sidney dead? How many brother, cousins, nephews, uncles want Sidney dead? At some point, it's like, all right, like, come on. Right? And I understand it's a movie. There's movie logic. It's not meant to be, taken too seriously. But one of the things that I personally appreciate very much about the Scream franchise is the realism. Now, does it have unrealistic moments? Of course, absolutely. Right? It has movie logic and all kinds of stuff, but for the most part, the foundation, it is inherently a very rooted in reality style horror franchise, right? I don't want to lose that. And eventually you start doing things, you start kind of trying to find ways, and the stories start to get a little more unbelievable, a little more like, okay, like now you're just kind of trying to stretch it here a little bit, right? Like, and to me, it's just like the beauty of Scream is it's not a Jason, it's not a Michael, it's not a Freddy, right? It's whoever's under the mask, and it's always somebody different, right? Like it's not reliant on, they killed Michael. Time for a new timeline, time for a new branch off, time for a new, like, you don't have to do any of that stuff. You can keep it, in order. And that's the beauty of it. That's one of the things that I appreciate and love about the Scream franchise so much, is that you're not so reliant on the Laurie and Michael story, right? I mean, Scream 6 had success. Sidney wasn't even in it. Scream 5 had success and Sidney was hardly in it, right? Like, so again, I think we've seen enough to know, like, hey, this franchise can have success without her. But I understand why they brought her back, given the Melissa Barrera, and Sam Carpenter and all that stuff, right? Like, you kind of are like, okay, we either just go completely fresh or you go to old reliable, right? You go the safe route. And they chose the safe route, which is fine. So I'm on board. Fine. You sign me up. Let's go. But I do think at some point you need to start making that transition. And the idea was Sam. Okay, well, you don't have Sam anymore, so you need to start making that transition in another way. Here's Sydney's daughter, right? Here's Tatum. And then you start, again, seeing that transition from Sydney into Tatum. And then lo and behold, we have Scream 30 and Tatum is, doing her thing. But anyway, as always, this is a discussion. Pass question on you. Let me know your thoughts and opinions down in the comments below. What do you think? How do you feel with your thoughts? Agree with me? Disagree with me? Kind of mixed in the middle. How do you feel? Whatever your thoughts are. Either way, I'd love to hear it. So let me know down in the comments. That being said, if you haven't liked this video, hit that like button. Helps me a lot. So we enjoy these types of videos and I truly appreciate it. Not subscribe channel. What are you doing? Hit that subscribe button. Turn on the bell notifications. Appreciate y'all. See you on the next one. Thank you.